All right, so normally I wouldn't show you a nut job, but in this case, it's too cool not to share. What's up everyone, Jeff from Strumwood Guitars, and this is no ordinary nut replacement. First of all, it's a brass nut. Second of all, it's on an aluminum guitar. Okay, so it's an aluminum neck. It is a post-consumer aircraft grade aluminium. Aluminium. And that is mounted to a 3D milled clear lucite body. So it is definitely something that catches your attention. It is practically see-through. There is a little bit of a frosting on the body, but it's really cool. You can see the wiring on the back side. So that's not for the faint of heart. It's made from a company called Aluminati. Link is in the description if you want to check them out. This is called the Orion. It comes in a couple different versions, and this particular one is a 24 fret baritone. We are currently tuned to low A, so we are a full step down from your standard baritone tuning, but we're actually going to keep going down to an even lower E. So another really cool feature about this guitar, and the reason why it's in the shop, is because we are cutting a nut for thicker strings for a lower tuning. And then down the line, if we wanted to go back to the way it is currently, we just have to unbolt the nut, put the old one in, you're good to go. I'm hoping that because this is a notched nut coming from Aluminati, that it is a direct replacement for their models, meaning that it should already be roughly shaped and sized up that we can just put it into place, put the string gauge notches that we require, and it's good to go. So let's put it on the bench and get started. The first thing that I want to do is be able to measure everything as it sits currently. So of course the string gauges are going to change, so these numbers are kind of pointless, but it just gives us a good relationship on how everything sits, as well as if we ever need to go back to this original setup. So just on the back of the neck, we have these two Allen keys. We can just loosen that. That should be all we need to do. And there you go. So that is the old nut coming out. And now to basically make one look identical. Just for my own sake of comfort level, I am actually going to cut this off of the guitar. So even though this nut is a direct replacement, we won't have to do any shaping of this. It fits perfectly on the sides, on the bottom, the radius. We are just cutting string grooves on this. I'm not going to take any unnecessary risks and put those metal shavings on the aluminum neck. I will do it all here, get them to the right string thickness, and then once it's at that point, we will transfer it to the guitar. Now, if you aren't familiar with the term pre-slotted nut, all that really means is that it has the correct string spacing, but it's a very shallow cut. So you will have to come back and get this with the correct gauge of what you are playing on your guitar. So what I'm doing with this brass nut is no different. I'm just taking my file and going in small one direction strokes. I'm not going back and forth aggressively or turning it on any sort of angle. We want to just go really nice and slow, couple strokes. And then I'm grabbing the new string gauge, trying to see where that's going to be and how that fits. Remember, we don't have the ability of filling these slots if we go too far. So I'm going to continue doing this down all of the sizes, and once it gets close to being able to support the string, then it's ready to go on the guitar. Now we have the nut actually loosely bolted on the bottom. I've got string tension on, it's tuned, and now we can start to fine tune these slots. So I've just put some painter's tape on the neck just to protect us from any of the fibers of elements. Of course, we don't want those brass shavings going through. And a little trick that you can do is put a feeler gauge through, and then it just pulls the tape underneath the strings. Now I'm going to leave the low string to last just because I would like to get the easier ones out of the way, and then we can set up again that relationship between the strings. So what I'm going to do is take my 20 thou feeler gauge and just put it in there, and all I'm doing is just lightly pressing. And we want this to be touching on the string as well as the fret, and if you hear a click or you can feel movement, then we know that the nut is still a little too tall. So we'll loosen this. Take the string out, and then we will just file it with the correct file. And again, less is more here. I'd rather do this 2 or 3 times than go too far. We'll just take our fretting brush and get that off the bench. String it back up. And then see where we're at. And that feels pretty good. So of course, if we are too high at the nut, then the intonation will be out because this is going to make the whole string sharp. If it's too low, then of course we are going to be buzzing on the frets, and that's also not good. I'm not too sure on how much more filming I'm going to be able to do because I'm going to have to contact my client and we can finish up the setup probably in person, but all that's really left is to finally touch these up to the player's spec, and then I can just polish this nuts. But I did want to show you one thing that came up, and we'll do a play test right now just so you can hear what this thing sounds like. Now, I don't want to call this a negative or a drawback, but it is one thing that perhaps was overlooked when setting this guitar up, or perhaps I'm even missing something. But we've got a square peg and a round hole situation here. So when I'm trying to actually intonate this, which this one is currently not, this is our low string, we actually need to go a little bit further back, but you cannot because the saddle is actually hitting the sidewall of the bridge. So why this didn't just come straight back and sit kind of like an ashtray, I'm not too sure. That doesn't make a lot of sense in my head. Oh, but there's one more tone enhancing feature I forgot to show you. You ready? Do it with me. So if you really needed to be seen on stage, you have this awesome LED show inside your clear guitar. So all in all, that was a pretty quick little project, but considering that you don't see a lot of aluminum necks or brass nuts, figured it would be kind of cool to show it. So thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, feel free to let me know. And down in the comments, what do you think of the guitar? Is there something that you would do? What kind of changes would you make to your guitar? And with that, I hope this brought you one step closer to happy strumming.